To begin your aquarium animation project, you were asked in the first phase to draw some objects that would be saved as symbols inside your library for the project. The first was to create a fish with at least 3 views: a side view, a 45-degree view, and a front view. And we'll use those views in animating the fish to have it turn around inside the aquarium. This is based on an animation of 12 frames per second. If you're going to do 24 frames per second, you will really probably need at least 5 views. I would do a 30 and a 60-degree view as well, just to make it a little smoother transition. You're also going to have a plant inside of your aquarium, and we're going to have the fish swim both in front of and behind that plant to give it some depth for our animation. You're going to have some air bubbles. You're going to have 2 sets, one small, one large, and you will have one coming out of the ground of the aquarium, one coming out of the fish's mouth, and we're going to look at masking in a later lesson that we'll use with these air bubbles to have them disappear at the top of the water line. And then at least one other object inside your aquarium. Now that we looked at doing some animation with movie clips, we want to begin taking those symbols and animating them. And I want to show you some tips and give you some guidance on how to accomplish this. So today we're going to look at the very first one, which is the fish swims back and forth twice following different motion guide paths. There will be 4 animation sequences. So it's going to go left to right, right to left, left to right, and right to left. It will follow 4 different paths. We're going to use 3 different views of the fish in the frame animations to have it turn. And this can be a frame-by-frame animation. And you want to have the fish end at the same location, the last frame of the 4th sequence, as it began in the first frame of the first sequence, so it doesn't jump when the animation is looped. So here are the 3 views of my fish inside the aquarium. I've got the plants and some ground, and you'll see a water line in the aquarium. So you must have a water line inside your aquarium so that the air bubbles will disappear at that line and not extend beyond it. And that's how I'm evaluating whether you can use mask or not. Your fish should always be contained inside the aquarium, so we don't want the fish coming from the left side and extending out the right side like we've done our goose. We want to keep the fish inside the aquarium. So my fish here is a little bit large for the aquarium. I just wanted you to see the 3 different views. I'm going to go ahead and delete those. And so I have a background, which is my aquarium. That's basically everything you see there. And then I have a fish 1. We're going to have 2 fish in our aquarium. But I'm going to show you the first fish. So I'm going to start with the profile or side view of my fish. I'm going to bring it in. Like I said, I designed this a little bit larger, so I'm going to bring this down in size. And so I'm going to have the fish start there. And I want to bring this fish over to the right-hand side, and I'm going to use a frame-by-frame animation to do that. Now my animation is 24 frames per second, so let's take maybe 2 seconds for it to come over here. So I'm going to go to about frame 25. I'm going to insert a keyframe. I'm going to move my fish over to here. And I'm going to create a classic tween. Now I'm going to add a layer guide to this, or a motion guide, and I want to go back and find the rotation point for that fish. I'm going to use my ruler guides to do that. Same with the last frame sequence. And I'm going to draw a line that goes between those ruler guides. And that's going to be on the motion guide layer. If I want, I might want to hide and even lock these other layers. And I'm going to turn my fish back on. I want to scrub it so I can see it move and follow that path. Now just so I can get an idea for the time sequence, I'm going to go ahead and just test my movie and see if 2 seconds is enough. That's probably okay. It could maybe be a little slower than that. If I wanted to add in some frames here, let's say I want to add in maybe 10 frames, I can select those frames and choose Insert Frame. That'll extend it down a little bit. And now I'm going to extend my background down as well so I can see the whole thing in the animation. I'm going to test my movie again. And that's a pretty good speed for this animation, I think. Okay, so that's following one path. What I want to do now is turn this fish around. So here I'm going to insert a keyframe. I'm going to take that fish and I'm going to swap it in the properties for my 45-degree view of the fish. Then I'm going to create another keyframe and I'm going to swap this one for the front view. Maybe I'll let the front view sit there for a few frames, so I'm just going to come out, insert a keyframe here, select the front view, and I'm going to swap it back for the 45-degree view. But now I want to have that 45-degree view be transformed by flipping it horizontally so he's facing the other way. Maybe I'll leave him there for just a couple of frames. And then I'm going to insert another keyframe. And this time I'm going to swap it for the side view, or in my case, the profile view. Now, because it was already transformed, that transformation was also applied to the swapped symbol. Okay, so I want to have this fish now swim to another location. So we found that about 35 frames was pretty good. I'm at about frame 45, so I'm going to go about frame 80. Insert a keyframe. I'm going to grab that fish and let's move it down to here. And I'm going to adjust my ruler guides on this keyframe. And I'm going to insert a keyframe on my guide layer. And where that animation ended, I'm going to insert a keyframe there as well. And so I don't need a keyframe in between those. It doesn't matter, I could leave it there, but I'm going to go ahead and just clear that keyframe. So I'll insert a blank keyframe. So I'm starting another keyframe here. I'm going to get rid of this line. And I want to draw a line from this intersection point down to this intersection point. And again, I'm going to have it kind of follow a little bit different path, just to give it a little bit of some interest. And I'm going to extend that down. I'm going to insert a frame. And let's extend our aquarium down. And let's now test our movie. So the fish swims down, left to right, turns. And I need to add a classic tween in here. That's what I forgot. Now let's test this again. So as you build it, it's a good idea to test your movie as you build and correct any mistakes that you find along the way. Okay, so there's our animation. Now you notice how this animation currently jumps. The fish is down here. When it loops back around, it jumps up here. So we want to have the fish swim back over to the top right, and then maybe back over here, turn around, and it'll loop at that point. So I need to basically do the same thing I did before in terms of turning this fish around. I'm going to insert a keyframe. Actually, maybe I want to have it just stop there for a few frames. I'm going to insert a keyframe a little bit later. And I'm going to take that fish and swap it for the 45-degree view. I'll have it sit there for a couple seconds or a couple frames. I'm going to insert another keyframe, and this time I'm going to swap it for the front view. Extend out a few frames. Insert a keyframe, swap it again for the 45-degree view. And I want to flip it horizontally. Insert a keyframe, and then once again swap it for the side view or profile view. Now I want to have the fish swim up this way. So maybe want to swim a little faster this time. I'm just going to go about maybe, let's see, we're at 85. Let's go 25 frames. That'll take us to 120. I'm going to insert a keyframe. Move the fish to where I want it. And then I'm going to move my ruler guides to intersect that. Let's insert a blank keyframe on our guide layer. Draw our guide path between those 2 points. Maybe decide how we want to have this follow the path. I'm going to extend that down by inserting a frame. And let's extend our background down as well. So now the fish is going to swim over. He's going to rotate. And I need to add my classic tween in here. So after he's done rotating, he'll follow that path. And I want to flip him around again. It's pretty close to the top water line, but I think it'll be okay there. So let's insert a keyframe. Let's swap him. 45-degree view. Insert a keyframe. Swap him for the front. I'm going to let him sit there on the front for a few frames. Extend it a little bit this time. Let's insert a keyframe here. Swap it 45-degree view. And this time again I want to rotate this or flip it horizontally. We're going to insert a keyframe again. Swap it for our profile view. And now I want to bring the fish back to where we started on frame 1. I want to make sure my ruler guides are correct there. So I'm just going to come back to frame 1, check my ruler guide. So it's a little bit off there. I'm going to bring this one up to there. That looks pretty good. Okay. So let's extend this down a few frames. So I'm going to go about 35 frames again, insert a keyframe, and I'm going to bring this fish down so that he's back in the same position where he started. So simply facing the other way. I'm going to insert a keyframe on my guide layer. Let's get rid of that guide. And here we're going to draw a line or a guide path that goes between those 2 rotation points of my keyframes. And I'm going to get over to this frame here. Actually, let's extend our guide layer down. Insert frame. And when he gets over here, we're going to insert a keyframe. Swap him for the 45-degree view. Insert a keyframe. Swap him for the front view. Insert a keyframe. Swap him again for the side view. I want to rotate that, or flip it, transform, flip horizontal. And then let's insert a keyframe. This will be our last turn. We're going to swap it for fish profile. And I'm going to have it sit there just for a few frames. So I'll insert a frame. And let's extend our aquarium background down. And in that last sequence, I need to create a classic tween. Make sure he follows the path. And now, let's test our movie. So he's following a path left to right, turns, goes back the other direction. That's path 2. Path 3, floating up to the top, turns around, comes back to where he started, turns, and my animation loops seamlessly. I can let this run all day long and the fish does not jump. Now, one thing we might want to do is on one of these sequences, I'm going to take the one where he's up here near the top. I'm going to select all of those frames. I'm going to turn the Edit Multiple Frames on and get those frames. I'm going to lock my other layers so I don't accidentally move them. And here, I'm going to select all of those. And I'm going to make them a little bit smaller. So this way it'll look like he's kind of gone back a little further into the depth of the aquarium. And turn that off. And now let's test our movie again. So he's got a little smaller back that way, comes back, turns around. So that is how we have our fish follow 4 different paths, and we have it loop seamlessly and use frame by frame animations to turn it. That is the first part of your animation.